to the Recruiting Blitz with D Squared.
It is time to share your decision. Where are you headed to school?
Ooh, Alabama gets the number one safety in the country. What was it about Alabama?
LSU Tigers, number one. Go Tigers.
And the next 4 years, I'm going to Denver University.
Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, 256-576-4977. Now, here's D Squared.
Welcome, everyone, to the Tuesday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. And I am D Squared. We're going to have a great show for you today as we are going to talk some Jacksonville Jaguars. Of course, as we know, they're bringing in Calvin Ridley, who spent the last year due to a suspension, which seemed a little excessive for betting. But he had a nice career rolling with the Atlanta Falcons until, he ran into a little bit of a rough patch, had some mental health issues that he had to deal with, which is a very real part of our society. But Calvin Ridley, of course, the All-American from the Jacksonville area, he's really going home to play with Trevor Lawrence and a team that won their division, won a playoff game last year. He should be a huge weapon for Trevor Lawrence, and really he should be considered almost part of their draft class. But again, the Jacksonville Jaguars took a huge step forward last year with Trevor as their quarterback and the future of their franchise. No doubt Travis Etienne as well, a big part of their running game. And then they draft Tank Bigsby, which I thought was a very intriguing pick. I believe he was in the third round as a runner and receiver. He could be a really nice complement to their running back room. Thought that was a really nice pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars as far as a value pick, no doubt about it. But we are going to talk to John Frary in about 25 minutes or so, 25 minutes. We're going to talk to him around between 9:25 and 9:30. He does a great job for WFOI. There's no one really more well-versed in the Jacksonville Jaguars than him. We'll also talk about the Gators. He follows Florida very closely. Anthony Richardson, still mind-boggling to me that he's the number 3 pick in the draft to the, number 4. Let me correct myself. Number 4, as C.J. Stroud came off the board second quarterback drafted behind Bryce Young. Will Anderson, they trade up to the Texans, as we talked about yesterday, from 12 to 3 to take him third overall, and then fourth and the third quarterback in 4 picks, Anthony Richardson. The gamble, the rolling of the dice for the Indianapolis Colts, who have had a hard time replacing Andrew Luck since he abruptly retired a few years ago. So will Anthony Richardson live up to the billing? It's going to be very, very interesting to say the least. But again, I really like where the Jags are going, though, as a franchise. As we know, they've got Trent Baalke as their general manager, but Doug Peterson, who I thought got a raw deal. He won the Super Bowl with the Eagles. He ended up getting replaced. It all, kind of fell apart for him because of the quarterback situation, though. Carson Wentz couldn't stay healthy, could never regain his MVP form. And then, we all saw what Nick Foles did off the bench to help them win a Super Bowl. He was never a long-term starter for anyone in the National Football League. And during his tenure there, they did draft Jalen Hurts, but he never really got a chance to see that through to fruition. But I thought it was a really solid hire, by the ownership group with the Jacksonville Jaguars, no doubt about it. And they've been trying to stabilize themselves. They had a good run under Doug Marrone for a couple of years, and before that under Tom Coughlin, but they've never had consistency. And maybe they're about to finally reach that. We'll see, no question about it. But it was still an interesting NFL draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they were picking low because of the fact that they won their division and won a playoff game. That's just the way it kind of works when that happens, and you end up, winning your division and things of that nature. But still, I thought overall, when you looked at it, that the Jacksonville Jaguars did a solid job, and we're certainly going to talk to John Frary about that, and we'll see, kind of where things stand in his mind and where their things are NFL draft-wise and where they are as an organization. And then, like I said, we will also take the time to talk some Florida Gator football as the Florida Gators are going into their second year under Billy Napier, and they're being very aggressive, no question about it, in the transfer portal. So really interesting stuff going on, and we'll talk to John about that, as he does a great job, no question about it. So he's going to be someone we catch up with in the very near future, and we will definitely take a look at that. And the Jags, I know when you looked at it, I was looking at Chad Reuter, who does a great job for the NFL Network. He does a lot of their draft grades. He gave the Jags a high grade, a B+, and they had a ton of picks in this draft, by the way. Anton Harrison from Oklahoma, the offensive tackle, to probably play opposite, Cam Robinson from Alabama. He would probably be slated as a right tackle. Then Penn State, Brenton Strange, in the second round, near the end of the second round, he's a tight end from Penn State. And as we said, in the third round, Tank Bigsby. And then a Gator, there you go, Ventrell Miller in that fourth round area. He was a guy that was hurt, but when he was healthy, he did a nice job for the Florida Gators, no doubt about it. He was the Jags' fourth round pick. So very interesting pick there. And I thought the Antonio Johnson pick as well, very productive safety from Texas A&M. That was a guy that they drafted in round 5, near the end of round 5. He was still on the board. I thought that was a very interesting draft pick as well. But, I think overall it was, I believe, 14 picks for the Jacksonville Jaguars as an overall class, and Reuter gave them a B+ grade. We'll find out what John thinks overall of it. But certainly it was a balanced draft. They even picked a fullback in the last round, Derek Parrish of Houston. Most teams don't even use a fullback anymore, but they did draft him in round 7 near the end of the draft. So just some very interesting stuff from the Jacksonville Jaguars and what they were able to do and who they picked. So we'll definitely be talking to John Frary about that, as the Jaguars, as we said, had a really interesting NFL draft, one that was highly thought of by the NFL Network. And really, when you're picking at the end of the first round, as they were, it can get a little dicey, but certainly the Jacksonville Jaguars did a really nice job. So look forward to talking to John about that and about a few other things. But before we do, I wanted to just once again pay homage, give a shout-out to Lee High School. We had Irving McGuire on our sister station on ESPN 97.7 The Zone this morning, renaming their athletic facility the Conridge Holloway Athletic Complex, and then the Conridge Holloway Performance Center. Just one of the greatest athletes, probably really the greatest athlete in the history of our school, or of our city, Conridge Holloway, a 3-sport standout at Lee High School. Very, very quiet and humble and assuming guy. He did an outstanding job as a representative of Lee, and then, of course, as we know, was someone that went on to become the first African-American quarterback in the history of the Southeastern Conference. And he did all of that in saying that he, played, 3 sports in high school. And really, honestly, when you think about it, and again, it's been named now the Conridge Holloway Athletic Complex, football was probably his 3rd best sport. And he was an outstanding quarterback at Lee High School. But he was a guy that averaged close to 30 points per game. John Wooden recruited him at UCLA for the Hall of Fame and late coach Jerry Dugan, who won a state title before Conridge, just right before his time at the school in 1968 in his first year. Conridge, of course, graduated in 1972. But an amazing time for Conridge Holloway and all those folks out there. And he in baseball, he was a first-round draft choice of the Montreal Expos. So Conridge Holloway, no question, was an outstanding athlete. I didn't get a chance to watch him play, but certainly, he's someone that I think meant a lot to a lot of people, and really did an outstanding job as a student athlete at Lee High School. And I still think he's the highest drafted player in the history of our city. He decided not to play professional baseball. His mother wanted him to go on and go to college and get his degree, which he did at Lee, and then went on to have an outstanding career as a quarterback in the Canadian Football League, and has been for many years a representative of and an athletic director, an associate athletic director at the University of Tennessee. No question about that. But he's just an outstanding player, and it was just great to see him get honored and be so humble. And he's always been so humble and quiet and soft-spoken. But it's just great to see him come back to the city and be honored by Lee High School and put his name on there, and it be the Conridge Holloway, athletic complex. It was great to see the turnout. A lot of people out there, came out there to see him, and it was great to have him back in his city, And as Conridge said, this is not just a building. This is Lee High School, and he goes, and I went here, and again, it was fourth overall. I knew it was in the top 5. And Holloway's mother refused to sign the contract, and she wanted him to, become a college student and go to play football for the University of Tennessee, and he certainly did that, and played baseball. Once his football career was over, I believe his final year at Tennessee, he hit 350. So what an unbelievable athlete he was, no doubt about it. And he just and wherever he did, he competed at the highest level. And Conridge was just an outstanding representative of Lee High School in our city, and my only regret is I didn't get a chance to see him compete, but my father certainly did, and he won the Canadian Football League, the Grey Cup twice, really his impact on our city is just what was really the biggest story there, and just an unbelievable accomplishment for him. And he still has family here. He's very proud of being from Lee High School, and we're certainly very proud of him, no doubt about it. And so, it's just a great day for everyone, for him to be able to come back and have that done for him, and he just did amazing things for Lee High School, no doubt about it. But right now, we're going to bring you, though, some audio. Speaking of the Jacksonville Jaguars and their draft, they had an outstanding NFL draft, and we're going to bring you some comments from Doug Peterson and the general manager, Trent Baalke, as we lead into the conversation with John Ferry. We wanted to bring you some of that this morning on the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio here.
Wondering if you could address the pick of Ventrell Miller and how much concern you might have had about his medical issues with the foot.
No concern really. He injured his foot, had a revision on it. He's progressing well. The docs were very confident in his rehab, and he'll be ready to roll.
What about in terms of where you see him fitting on this roster?
Well, he's a linebacker. He'll compete for a spot. You asked me what I think. He's a linebacker. He'll be in that room, and he can play Mike and Mo. He's a 3-time captain. He's a high intangible guy. He's a baller. Feel he fits in really well on special teams as well as a core 4 guy. So, looking forward to getting him in here.
13 picks, 8 of them in the final 3 rounds. Do you look at those late guys as the equivalent of maybe undrafted free agency in a normal year, or do you feel like 13 guys can fit on this roster that was pretty darn good last year and didn't lose a ton?
Well, what we tried to do is, Coach and I throughout the process, once the day started, is look at ways that we could improve the roster, especially on the special team side. And just selecting guys that had a chance to compete for the 53 and as well as special teams, bring some added value there, and felt really good about the group we got.
Did you think special teams was not as good as it could have been last year? Because I thought you were pretty decent on special teams, but I'm just...
You're always looking to get better. You know,
Always trying to improve. Special teams is just three phases of what we are as a team, right? Offense, defense, and special teams. And as good as we were, I mean, you're always looking, again, just like any other side of the ball, it's a way to get even better. So adding the depth and bringing, drafting some of these players that we did can help us there.
Brought in Antonio Johnson. He's a guy who spent most of his collegiate career playing in the slot. Is that your vision for him here in Jacksonville?
Well, he's in the slot a lot, but he's a safety, in how they play the defense. So he wasn't, man covering a lot of people in the slot. He dropped down. He's more of a box type guy. But again, there's a high character, tough guy, great tackler. Just a guy that we fit in, a really good teams guy. He's been a core 4 guy there his whole career. Really looking forward to him as well, getting in here and competing with that group.
Going into the draft, you told us your board was, less than 150 draftable graded players. Was it always your plan to acquire more picks in this draft when you said you had a little bit of a shorter board?
No, it wasn't. But if you look at how the draft went, we tried to trade up today. We went through 15 or 16 teams when we were trying to trade up. Every team behind us, and not one would make a move. So, that happened to us several times. And the times we were able to trade back, we just felt at the time that we could trade back and get the players that we were planning on picking anyway, and we're able to do that. So it's just how the draft went this year.
Hey, Doug, I don't know how much, and Trent, do you guys pay attention to what the other teams in the division are doing on a day like, or the weekend like this, or is that something that you wait for a couple of days to kind of look that way?
I know for me personally, I didn't pay much attention to it because we were so into our draft, and the guys that we were doing. It's something that we'll take a look at now as we get past this weekend and on into the rest of the offseason. Yeah.
I would assume you noted that all 3 teams drafted quarterbacks.
Didn't notice that.
Yeah, no, not at all. Does that?
Did they?
Does it,
Oh, they did.
They did.
How comforting is that to know, and I think you addressed a little bit the other night, those guys are chasing you because you've got your guy, and how comforting it is and how much it takes off your mind to know you've got your guy and you don't have to worry about that.
I mean, yeah, it's nice to have your guy, obviously, but listen, there's a bullseye on us, obviously. I want our team to understand that, and we have to, we have to continue to do this. We have to improve as a football team. We still left a lot of plays on the field last fall, both sides of the ball, really all 3 phases, and so for us, it's not focusing on other teams as much as it is just us getting better, and it'll start this off season and it'll carry over into training camp. But we have to improve. But it is nice knowing that you have, the one piece, which is a big piece, obviously the quarterback position in Trevor Lawrence.
Trent, could you just talk about the evaluation of Abdullah? Just 6 foot tall, probably a little bit smaller normally than a typical edge player. Just how did you guys see him, and how did he sort of fit?
Well, first and foremost, special teams. And the fact that he had 20 sacks the past 2 years at a high level of competition. So, there's been some very productive shorter rushers in the National Football League. He can run. He runs 4.52, and he gets to it in a hurry coming off the edge. And what you see with the smaller guys that are having success in this league, it's hard for those 6'6", 6'7" tackles to get down to their level. So that gives them, and it's a change up for our guys. And our defensive staff was kind of looking for a guy that was a change up to what we currently have. So, we just felt at that point in time, the production, the character of the kid, how hard he works, how important football is to him, and the success he's had at that level all made sense to us.
do you anticipate him playing more than just on the edge, maybe a little bit off ball like he did at Louisville, or just probably more consistently as a pass rusher?
That's going to be up to the coaches once he gets in here, and we'll get a good feel for him over the next couple of weeks, months, and see exactly where he fits into the defensive package. But that's totally up to the coaches.
Tyler Lacey, you guys had in for a top 30 visit. What kind of impression did he make on you guys during that visit?
Excellent impression.
Really good,
Yeah.
I mean, what do you see from him, on tape, just his overall versatility and what he can bring?
Well, a big-bodied guy, and as you saw in this draft, they were few and far between. There just weren't a lot of big bodies up front, and he's a guy that played a lot of football at a high level of competition. He's a class act, another guy that really a character fit, DNA fit for us. So a guy that we feel can come in and compete, play on the edge in the base package as a big end, and maybe slide inside a little bit as a D tackle when we go into the nickel sets.
And then Braswell, I know you've mentioned special teams a few times. Is that obviously going to be critical for him coming in, but what else was there that you saw out of him that really interested you guys?
Cover skills. When you talk to their coaches, he was a transfer in there 1 year with them at Rutgers. So a guy that, stepped in, played a lot of football. They spoke very highly of him. You watch how he competed the last part of the season, and then you look at the numbers. 40-inch vertical guy, almost 11-foot broad jumper. He's got some explosion in his body, and he's really quick in a short area, which you have to be at nickel.
Just kind of run through these seventh-round guys since we just kind of found out about them. Hodges, local guy. How did he get on your radar?
Well, we were watching, years ago I was watching App State, and we drafted a guy, Daniel Kilgore, out of App State that was playing left tackle. And similar to this year, we were watching, a bunch of us were in there watching the App State, and we were actually watching another player. And, he just kept showing up. He's a tough, he started, I think, 50 or 51 games at the collegiate level. He's always been a right tackle for them. We feel he can move inside and play the guard position. We had him in here for one of the 30 visits. Really enjoyed the visit, and saw him play guard at the All-Star game and felt really good about that film. So just a guy that come in and compete.
And then Raymond out of UNC.
Raymond.
Bohasek.
Yeah.
Yes.
Defensive tackle, nose tackle. Very good film. Very good film. Tough, very good with his hands. Spoke to him on the phone, had a great conversation with him the other day. A guy that loves football. Worked with a guy that's on staff at North Carolina, spoke very highly of him. He's all ball. And when we called him, and Coach got a chance to talk to him, he's all ball. So.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if you had any comments.
None.
No. Okay. And then the $1 million question, Mr. Parrish will be playing what position for you?
Well, again, another guy that we'll leave that up to the coaches, but we're probably going to start him off in the fullback room, the running back room, and we'll work him from there. Another guy that's an excellent special teams guy, core four guy that our special teams coaches were extremely high on.
Trent, with how many draft picks you guys made, does that affect at all the ability to be aggressive with undrafted free agents and bringing guys in on that standpoint?
Well, the advantage of having that many picks, what happens in college free agency, which the guys are doing right now, they cost a lot of money. That game, that landscape has changed. So, we're out there, these seventh-round picks are really getting less money than the college free agents are getting right now in terms of guaranteed dollars and everything else. So, when you have 13 picks, it allows you to draft some of those guys that you would normally be fighting for in college free agency. But once you get these guys on the team, we don't set any boundary, we don't set any limits. Whether you're the first guy on the roster or the 90th guy on the roster, you come in and compete. If you earn the spot, you're going to earn the spot. And I think Coach would say the same thing.
Yeah.
Were there any of the calls to the guys that you picked that stood out to you guys either way? Good, bad, funny, anything that sticks with you or one you really enjoyed talking to?
Well, one guy we couldn't get on the phone.
Went straight to voicemail.
Twice.
Twice.
Which one was that?
I believe it was let me see if I can recall. I think it was Eric Hallett.
It was Eric Hallett, I
Eric
believe.
Hallett. But once he
Yeah.
got on the phone, he was fired up.
Everybody reacts differently. I mean, some guys are just emotional. You know, they're overwhelmed. They hear their name, you know, called on the big screen, and at the same time, they're excited to know where they're going to be and go to work. All of them, as Trent alluded to, you know, all these guys are high character guys. They're going to be great fits, you know, on our roster right now, and they're just excited to get in and go to work.
Do you have pretty much a script when you call these guys, what you're always going to say, same thing, or you just kind of wing it each time? Or?
He's got the gift of gab.
Yeah, sure do, sure do. No, I mean, you just be natural. I mean, it's a great opportunity for them, you know. And they're I forget which one of the players that we talked to, we couldn't even hear him because the enthusiasm in the room. He couldn't hear us. Which was it?
Ventrell.
Yeah, it was Ventrell. Yeah, everybody was so fired up on his end that he couldn't hear us and I couldn't hear him. But he was just elated, and all of his family and friends were excited. But, you know, it's just, you don't have anything rehearsed. You're just natural and just welcoming them to the team.
Speaking of Eric Hallett, what do you envision the role for him, and just how do you just generally feel about his value?
Well, he's played some safety, he's played some nickel, you know, and again, once we draft them and they get in here, I think our coaches are looking at him in that same capacity. Where does he best fit? Is he competing for the nickel spot, big nickel spot, you know, the potentially safety? The versatility of the player was something that was very attractive to us at that point in time in the draft.
Doug, can you talk a little bit about that? Because you hear this word versatility over and over again with people you pick, because it just seems like one of your favorite things is to have chess pieces you can move around.
You know, it's the best thing to have. You know, the guys that can play multiple positions. He, you know, in his case, he can play inside, outside, and maybe eventually they play safety. Right? They got that skill set that is versatile enough to play multiple spots. You know, it's like tackles on offense or guards that can move in and play center. You know, and they have the ability to do that because, you know, this is a game that, you know, injuries are going to happen. And if you've got guys that can play multiple positions and you can kind of plug and play, and it just gives you an advantage to have as many of those guys, you know, on your roster.
Trent, do you have a guesstimate on the undrafted free agents, how many you have room for or would like to?
I think, well, I'm pretty sure we have room for 10.
Okay, 10. And Doug, the league has moved away from fullbacks, and now with Parrish, it sounds like you're adding one. You guys weren't very good on short yardage, 3rd and 1 last year. Is that a philosophical change for you to go to bring in a fullback and go that way, or is this a part of losing Manhertz, who was really good, you know, short yardage blocker?
We're just changing, pounding ground. Here we go. Trevor's going to turn around and hand it off.
Seriously?
No. Listen, you know, the fullback position has been non-existent pretty much in our league. It's kind of gone away. I grew up with a fullback in this league back when my days in Green Bay. And, you know, that position, again, we talk about versatility. You know, it's a position that can line up in the backfield. It can line up as a tight end. It could be a third tight end. They play special teams. You know, it's a position that you can do multiple things with. And, you know, it's something that having a guy, you know, on the roster that can play those positions just opens up your offense just a little bit more. And
that was Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke. We're going to go on a break here on this Tuesday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. Again, we've been talking some Conridge Holloway, the Conridge Holloway Athletic Complex now that has been opened over at Lee High School. Again, let me correct myself. Conridge graduating in the spring of 1971 before going to Tennessee. He had to sit out his freshman year because freshmen weren't allowed to compete on the varsity level. That changed in 1972. But Conridge Holloway, the starting quarterback in Tennessee, starting in 72 as a sophomore, 72, 73, 74, and then by 1975, as we know, started his journey in the CFL. But we're going to go on a break. When we come back, John Frary going to join us, and we're going to talk some more Jacksonville Jaguars and Florida Gators with him. Stay with us here on this Tuesday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio.
I'm with Ross from Southern Gent Landscaping. Now, Ross, lawn care is a key part of the landscaping business, but Southern Gent does just more than lawn care, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Here at Southern Gent Landscaping, we offer a variety of services to best satisfy our customers' needs, some of which include your typical landscape maintenance, your landscape installation, final grading, hardscaping, irrigation, AstroTurf, pretty much everything outside.
And let the people know where they can reach you.
You can reach us at 256-509-6088, and you can see some of our completed projects at Southern Gent Landscaping on Instagram.
That is Southern Gent Landscaping. Professional landscaping performed with satisfaction guaranteed.
What's better than Valley Equipment Rental? 2 Valley Equipment Rentals, and that's just what we have now. The original on the South Memorial Parkway between Drake and Airport Road, and their second location on North Memorial Parkway just north of Winchester Road. Valley Equipment is locally owned and has more skid steers, excavators, and lifts than anyone in the area, plus all the small tools that you need to get the job done like a pro. And if you are a pro, you need to check out the new North location now because Valley Equipment has what you need. Learn more at valleyequipmentrents.com.
This is Wes Neighbors talking to Chris Haygood of Bob Wallace Appliance. Chris, what sets you apart from other appliance dealerships?
Wes, these appliances are going into the most used room in your house, your kitchen. The way we have these appliances displayed, it's easy for you to visualize how they'll look in your home. Wes, what sets us apart is the people. They're well trained. In fact, they live and breathe these appliances. And if you need service, you'll really appreciate our parts department.
Contact Bob Wallace Appliance at 256-533-2121.
Great food and the best live entertainment is what it's all about at the Furniture Factory Bar and Grill. Head to downtown Huntsville every Tuesday for karaoke on the only outdoor karaoke stage in North Alabama. Thursday night is the Valley's longest running and biggest bike night. Food and drink specials, giveaways, and live music on the patio. And the Furniture Factory menu is fully loaded with options from steaks to salads, plus a whole lot more. Featuring a weekday happy hour that starts at 3. 619 Meridian Street, downtown Huntsville, and online at FurnitureFactoryBarGrill.com.
Guys, when we were 20, we never had to worry about spontaneity. And now that we've gotten older, spontaneity has been replaced with pills and injections. We're just trying to keep that intimacy, but it's taken away from spontaneity. At Advanced Life Clinic, we now offer GainsWave, which uses sound waves to non-invasively treat this issue with no need for pills or injections. Just give us a call, 256-888-9367, or check us out online, advancedlifeclinic.com.
McCurry Motors is your car and van rental headquarters. You can rent the vehicle you need today. Family in town, sporting event, church function, no matter what your need, McCurry Motors has you covered with a wide selection of cars and vans available for rent. They have 12-passenger Mercedes Sprinter vans, 12-passenger Ford Transit vans, 15-passenger Ford Transit vans, and 15-passenger Chevrolet Express vans. They have 2 locations, Highway 72 in Athens or Max Luther Drive in Huntsville.
When I chose a garage door company, I did my homework. I needed precision overhead garage door service. They have a 5-star Google rating. I checked their reviews and liked what their customers had to say. Precision overhead garage door has lifetime warranty packages. Same-day service if I call before 2 p.m. If they can't make it the same day, my service call fee the next day is waived. They did a 25-point safety inspection on the door and operator. Now that's peace of mind. Residential, commercial, and gate services. Precision overhead garage door service. Call 256-400-4500.
Welcome back to the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I am D Squared, Drudy Armand, and we've got our next guest on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. It's always great to catch up with him. No one more well-versed in the Jacksonville Jaguars and, of course, the Florida Gators than our next guest. He is now on daily on 1021news.com and part of Sports Radio News Talk 102.1 FM and 1240 AM WFOY in St. Augustine, Florida. It is John Frary, and John's going to join us to talk some Jags and some Florida Gators right now for a few minutes here on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. John, it's great to catch up with you. You're on another Recruiting Blitz with Drudy Armand. How are you?
Doing great, Drew. Great to be back with you as well. And I'll tell you, if you had told me last week at this time the Jacksonville Jaguars would have 13 draft picks and they would have used them all in the 2023 draft, I would have said no way. It was a very interesting draft for the Jags, to say the least, a strategy that I didn't see coming. And I think they wanted to move back up. In fact, Trent Baalke said they did, but
sounded like it. Yeah,
they didn't get any takers. So they've got 13 new Jacksonville Jaguars as of this morning.
Yeah, it sounded. I was watching Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke. We just featured some of that audio. Trent admitted they were trying to move up, but they were talking to. Sounded like multiple teams weren't able to do so. So they stayed, down at number 27, and they took Oklahoma offensive tackle Anton Harrison, and of course we know Cam Robinson has been suspended. How many games is it officially for the the performance enhancing substance?
It has not been determined yet. It could be anywhere from 2 to 6. It's basically determined on what the performance-enhancing drug was, to my understanding.
Yeah.
And that hasn't come out yet. Probably in the next few weeks, Drew, is when we'll know exactly how many games. And as you touched on, that's what forced Trent Baalke's hand, in my opinion, meaning I think it was going to be an offensive tackle the moment they found out. We and the media didn't find out till draft eve last Wednesday, but the Jaguars knew about this back in March.
Yeah.
So I think Anton Harrison was on their radar from day one, late first round, and it was intriguing that they did trade back twice in that first round and were still able to get Anton. So they must have been pretty confident that the teams they were trading with were not going to take them. Because they definitely have a need for that from day one next season.
Well, and when Cam Robinson returns, he's been the left tackle. Do they envision Anton being the right tackle as far as long term? What's the future for this young man?
The plan appears that Anton is going to be the right tackle long term. For now, Walker Little, who played last year when Cam got hurt late in the season, for those that don't remember, he had to play left tackle down the stretch and the playoffs, is probably going to play left tackle to begin this season, depending on how many games Cam is out. Anton probably plays right tackle, and what made Anton such an intriguing pick was that he's versatile, meaning he can play either tackle. He can also be pushed in and play guard, which I think, Drew, might be what he does for a few games this year. When Cam comes back, I think Cam goes back to left tackle. I think Walker Little might play right tackle, and I think Anton might move in just for this season only and play left guard. We shall see. Ben Barch, who's had that role, got hurt last year. Tyler Shatley had to play it, a 31-year-old. Basically reserved for the Jags since 2014. He's been valuable, but he's really not been a starter. So I think that's where it lies, and then I think this is going to be Cam's last year in Jacksonville. I think that was pretty much laid out even before this suspension because of the salary cap.
Mm-hmm.
So I think moving forward, Anton's going to be your starter next season, 2024, but he could play some guard when Cam comes back this year.
And we're talking to John Ferry, WFOY, in St. Augustine, Florida, talking some Jacksonville Jaguars draft. How excited are they to get Calvin Ridley involved in the offense? Calvin certainly seems rejuvenated and glad to go home and play with a great young football team in Trevor Lawrence. But how big a part of the offense could he be coming back off the suspension?
I think he's going to be huge, Drew, and they're very excited. He was basically the quote-unquote free agent acquisition. Now, technically he wasn't. They got him in a trade last year, but that was the philosophy going in, knowing he couldn't contribute last year. But you add him to what the Jaguars already have in that receiving core, which is Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, who both performed very well last year. They bring back Jamal Agnew, who was utilized in that as well as a return specialist. And you add Calvin Ridley to that group, And Calvin Ridley, as you know, can be a quote-unquote number one receiver, which the Jags really have not had. Christian Kirk was their number one, but I think Kirk is more of a two in the NFL, to be honest. And so there's a lot of excitement what Calvin can do. Now, the question mark is he hasn't played in almost 2 years when we get to next season. So if he's back in the shape he was before, which all reports are he is, I think this is going to be a very dangerous offense with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence together for the second year, because Trevor didn't have to learn a new offense this offseason like he did a year ago. So, and then you give him a weapon like Calvin Ridley, I think the sky's the limit for this Jaguar offense and what they can do with those four guys in the receiving core next season. Not to mention Evan Ingram comes back at tight end as well. So I think they're going to be pretty dangerous for opposing defenses.
And then you got Travis Etienne, but I think Tank Bigsby's an intriguing third-round pick that could be a good complement to him. I know they have a nice running back room, but Bigsby's a guy that is an underrated receiver and can also run the football. Didn't test as well as people were hoping as far as speed goes, but I think could be a good complementary piece in the backfield.
I love that pick, Drew. A lot of folks questioned it because they said you could get a different position at that round. I think the Jags needed a complement to Travis Etienne. The concern there is that Etienne's going to get hurt if you have to lean on him so much. And while they did bring in Dearness Johnson in free agency at running back, I love what I saw out of Tank Bigsby at Auburn in the SEC, and I think that's going to wind up being a very valuable pick in the third round, and I think he's going to be a great complement and allow Etienne not to get worn down as much as we get later in a 17-game season in the NFL. So I compliment Trent Baalke for taking that pick. Again, I know there were some that questioned it because they've got some running backs they brought in, but I think Tank Bigsby's going to add an element this Jaguar offense doesn't have, especially in short yardage situations. He didn't get the name Tank for no reason, so I think he's going to be utilized when this season comes up, especially in the red zone.
Well, and then also another interesting pick, and you're very familiar with him. His issue has always been durability and staying on the field, but the Jags take Gator Ventrell Miller in round 4.
I like that pick as well. You do mention the durability. With the Jaguars, he's not going to be relied on to be a starter at linebacker, though. He's probably going to have to play some special teams and be a rotational player. So I think it's a good pick for a Jaguar defense that needs some help. He was the best defensive player the Florida Gators had the past 2 years when he was on the field.
Yes.
And so I like the pick. I think Ventrell will contribute, and I think he'll be a factor. Again, not a starter, but I think he'll be able to factor in rotationally, and if injuries happen, you've got him available. So I like what they have picked up there, too, in the 4th round.
Yeah, and it seemed as though just listening to Trent Baalke and Doug Peterson's reaction, and then the media being, very intrigued by him, but especially Trent Baalke. One of the interesting that at the top of the 5th round, they got a undersized pass rusher in Yashir Abdullah from Louisville.
I think he might be the most intriguing of all these picks, Drew, because the Jaguars only had 35 sacks as a team last year, and they did not pressure the opposing quarterback nearly enough. That's their Achilles heel.
Right.
And I think this young man can help in that area. That is why he has been brought in. And as you stated, they get him in the 5th round. So they really didn't give up that much to get him, and especially with all the additional picks they acquired. I think he could be a guy that really factors in on long yardage down situations, 2nd and long, 3rd and long. Depending on how he picks up the defense, I think he could factor in. The Jags definitely need help in that pass rush. There's no doubt about it. Other than Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, they really don't have much in that area. And Trayvon only had 3.5 sacks a year ago. They're hoping in year 2 he picks it up, the overall first-round pick of 2022. But I think Yashir Abdullah is going to be a factor on this defense. I think the defensive coaches are going to have him factored in heavily this season on us as a special downs player, meaning on long down and distance situations to pressure the quarterback.
I think there's no doubt. You've got to be able to pressure the QB, and you've got to be able to disrupt. There's no doubt about it. And I think he, that has a chance to be, a really nice value pick there. And then the other one I like is because I thought he was, again, his team didn't have a ton of success consistently during his career, but I thought DB Antonio Johnson was another nice pick who could potentially help you at nickel or safety from Texas A&M.
I think he's definitely going to help at nickel. Going in, Drew, there were mocks that had Brian Branch going to the Jags in the first round. There were mocks that had Deontay Banks, and of course we know what they did with the offensive tackle situation. I think there's a role for Antonio Johnson, another fifth-round draft pick out of Texas A&M. You mentioned it, safety and nickel corner. The Jags brought back Trey Herndon to be the nickel corner. But there's an opening for Antonio Johnson. And I think just like Yasir Abdullah, there's going to be a special role for him. And I think both those guys are going to be on the field a lot more than you would probably see normal fifth-round draft picks on a team that was a playoff team a year ago. But I think Antonio's got a role, and I think you'll see a lot of him on passing situations this season for the Jags.
No question about it. And so overall, it seemed to be a really good draft for Jacksonville, considering they're a division champion. They won a playoff game, as you said. They moved around in the first round. Still got a tackle that they needed to build around long term. Cam Robinson may be in his final year. You've still got Walker Little there as well. But now to swing over to what I still find mind-boggling, and that is the third QB taken in 4 picks, the 4th pick in the draft, Anthony Richardson. We've talked about it. You covered him. Now we know he's going to the Indianapolis Colts. I still think it's the most polarizing pick in the first round.
I do too. I am amazed that he climbed up the way he did. We've talked about this from the NFL Combine back in early March, that he just skyrocketed from there despite his lack of production on the field when he was at Florida, and despite the fact that he only started 13 games. So it's been an amazing rise for Anthony. I wish him nothing but the best, except 2 games a year, of course, because he's in the Jaguars division. I don't think he's going to be very successful. I mean, just my personal opinion from what I've seen of him at quarterback. It will be interesting how patient they are in Indianapolis. Normally when you're a top 5 pick, Drew, they put you out on the field immediately. Now, they did bring in Gardner Minshew, who a lot of Jaguar fans are familiar with from his time here. I'm going to be curious how patient they are in Indianapolis, because I think this is a 2 to 3 year project minimum with Anthony.
I do too.
I just don't think they're going to be patient enough to let him have that time, but we shall see.
Well, and that's why I was happy in a way for Will Levis, because as you know, I wasn't sold on Levis. He didn't go in round 1. He went in round 2, and they have Ryan Tannehill there so maybe at least for a year he can learn behind him, which I still think would help him.
That is a much better situation for Will Levis, and that's one I didn't like to see come off the board where it did either, Drew, because that's another AFC South rival for the Jaguars, the Tennessee Titans. You mentioned Ryan Tannehill, who's going to be 35 this upcoming season, but that gives Levis a chance to acclimate. They can work with him. They don't have to throw him in right away, unlike Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis, where I think they are going to put him in sooner rather than later. But with Tannehill and the fact that Levis is not a first-round draft pick, he was a second-round pick. So I think that's a great spot for Will Levis to sit for a while and learn, at least for a year, maybe 2. But I think he will back up Tannehill this year. I don't think the Titans are going to have to force him in before he's ready, unlike Anthony Richardson, who I think you're going to see out there. I don't know if you'll see him the first game, but he'll be out there by October in my mind. There's no doubt about it. They are going to force him out there regardless this season.
Well, let's just put it this way. This will be a grand slam draft class for the Jags if Yasir Abdullah ends up being the same kind of pass rusher that former Louisville Cardinal Elvis Dumerville was. So let's wait and see. and see what they do with this draft class. But certainly, the Jags have come a long way in just over 2 years' time with the change at head coach and the development of Trevor Lawrence. A lot of excitement in Jacksonville about this organization acquiring Calvin Ridley as well. So it sounds like it's some bright days ahead. But John, we appreciate the time. Let everybody know how to connect with you, and of course, tell them about your daily show now.
They can connect with me on Twitter at JF_Sports Now. They can listen to me online at 1021news.com. And in St. Augustine from 4 to 6 on Tuesdays, 4 to 5 the rest of the week at 102.1 and 1240 WFOY. And as always, an honor and a pleasure to be with you, Drew. And as I leave, I just want to throw one other name out for folks to be intrigued by with the Jaguars draft. Parker Washington, who was a wide receiver out of Penn State, 6th-round pick, but they have compared him on a much lower level to a Deebo Samuel, meaning they might use him in the running back spot and use him in special situations. So I just throw that out there as a bonus. We'll see. I know he's a 6th-round pick, but he could be another one that could be an unusual weapon that Doug Peterson can use, and Doug's always good at utilizing guys. So it'll be intriguing to see how this all plays out.
It really will. Thank you, John. Have a great rest of your morning, and we appreciate you for joining us and talking some Jags and Gators, man.
Thanks for having me, Drew. Have a great day.
Thank you. We're going to go on our final break real quick, and we're going to come back, and we're going to wrap up this Tuesday edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Blitz Sports Radio. I'm D-Squared.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
You're bringing your daughter to her favorite pop star's concert. Do you A, wear earplugs?
Isn't this fun, Dad?
I'll have a soft pretzel.
B, remember the moment with matching concert t-shirts?
That's going to be $180. Or we can just take a photo.
C, show her how you used to do concerts.
We're going crowd surfing.
I can't. It's too heavy. Oh, my God. Ah.
Or D, just roll with it.
Justin! OMG! He just looked. I love you, Justin! I love you!
When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers. But that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
The tech show's on this month. You know, I was thinking of looking at home security systems.
Oh, cool. I'll go with you. We're looking for more home security ideas, too. That's why I called Budget Blinds.
Budget Blinds?
Look at this.
A remote for the blinds.
Yep, motorized.
Okay, well, that's beyond cool. I love it. But what does it have to do with home security?
Oh, they also come with a timer. The blinds and drapes open themselves in the morning, close in the evening.
Oh, so it looks like somebody's home even when you're not.
Exactly, and I saved a bunch of money. Sally saved a bunch of money.
Ha, but you'll take the credit.
Yeah.
My brother, the tech genius.
Thanks, man.
Now give me that remote.
Budget Blinds motorized window coverings are the ultimate in luxury, and during the Luxury Within Reach event, they're even more affordable. The more you buy, the more you save, with savings up to $2,000. Hurry and call 855-BUDGET-BLINDS now before this offer ends, or go online to budgetblinds.com. Don't miss out. Call 855-BUDGET-BLINDS now. Offer good on select products at participating independently owned and operated franchises. Restrictions may apply. Ask for details.
This is Wes Neighbors with Philip with Eagle Insulation, and we have an announcement to make.
Yes, Wes, we are now Eagle Masonry and Insulation. Still a place to call for your installation needs, but now we offer masonry services.
What kind of masonry projects can you handle?
Wes, no job is too big, no job is too small. We can do renovations, new construction, outdoor fireplaces, fire pits, brick landscape borders.
Well, when you came out to my house, you did both the insulation and masonry at the same time. You guys did rock for me, you did brick for me, and you insulated my house. That's usually done at the same time that you're building a house.
Absolutely. It really capitalizes on two services you need at the same time, and you can get one company to handle both of those.
Philip with Eagle Insulation will come out, do your installation. He'll do your masonry. They do a great job. They guarantee your work. Check out more online at insulatedwitheagle.com and schedule your free examination today. 256-755-1556.
Thanks, Wes.
This hour of The Blitz is brought to you by Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Online at FlemingHSV.com.
long does it take to get to the forest?
That's not far.
What are we gonna do? Hike?
Sure.
Are we there yet?
Yep, it's a short ride.
Welcome back to this edition of the Recruiting Blitz on Tuesday with D-Squared Rudy Arman. Wrapping up real quick, we've got the Bandyman Bailey Lowry, Captain Cool, John Abraham. Later today, the afternoon Blitz from 2 to 4. Don't forget, visit our sponsors, Alumni Hall, alumnihall.com. They do an outstanding job. Their new location at Bridge Street next to Belt, and then they will be moving later on down next to Buckle and adding Tennessee Vols to their repertoire. Go see Andy and the great people. They're hiring right now. Alumni Hall, alumnihall.com. And then don't forget to download our app, the Google Store, the Apple Store, to continue to support the Blitz Sports Radio. We've been going strong since late July, and we'll talk to you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Everybody have a great rest of your Tuesday.